Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this session. In this session, we will look into the the approaches to the CSS layout. So, one of the main problem faced by the web designers is that size of the screen used by the different users to view your particular application. So, as you know, every screen is different. The web application, wherever you want to display your web application, whether it is a mobile device or a tablet, whether it is a laptop, desktop. So all the screen sizes would be different. The change in the screen size is a big challenge for developing a web application. How what are the remedies that we can use in order to have a very good web application display on all kind of monitors. So we'll see into that. First is the issue is with the different kinds of a screen. So here 21-inch widescreen monitor. So it will have a this is the resolution 920 into 1080 pixels, and older iPhones they will have a smaller resolution 320 into 480 pixel. If you have an application satisfying both these screens, means making your web application look good in both these kind of a screen is a challenge. Satisfying both users can be difficult. The approach to take for one type of site content might not work as well as with another site with a different content. So that would be the problem for different kinds of screens. So what are the approaches that we can follow? One is the fixed layout. Second one is the liquid layout and hybrid layout. Hybrid layout is nothing but a combination of fixed as well as a liquid layout. So first we will understand what is a fixed layout. As the name suggests, so we are going to fix the size. So fixed layout will be having a particular size. Normally, when the fixed layout is used, when you know your web application is opened in what kind of a screens. Okay, 90% of the time, let us say your web application will be opened only using the mobile application, then you can design your layout with respect to that particular screen. Or if you think your web application predominantly it will be accessed by the laptops or the desktops, then you can have a with that in mind you can have your layout, that is a fixed layout. In a fixed layout, the basic width of the design is set by the designer. So this whatever the width you are going to have, it is decided based on what kind of a probability of the usage of a application on a particular screen, typically corresponding to an ideal width based on a typical monitor resolution. The advantage of fixed layout is that it is easier to produce and generally has a predictable visual result. So since we are having a fixed width, so generally it is very easy to develop, produce that kind of a pages, and we can have a predictable visual output. So what kind of a visual output we can see on different screen, we can easily predict. So fixed layouts have the drawbacks as well. For larger screen, there will be an excessive amount of blank space to the left and to the right of the content. Whenever you are using a fixed layout, what happens is if you are using a larger screen, in larger screen what will happen is your because your width is fixed, it is going to take up only that much portion only, and the rest of the area that is available in the screen, that will be shown as a blank. It is also optimized for typical desktop monitors. However, as more and more user visits are happening via smaller mobile devices, so it is optimized for the desktop monitors. But now with the Okay, sorry, I got disconnected. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
And you can see the presentation, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, uh, fixed layout. So, what is a fixed layout? Fixed layout is used when you know what kind of a devices your application will be used to access. Then what happens is almost most of the time your application is going to be accessed by the mobile devices or laptop devices, and you can design your web application with a fixed layout according to those resolutions. Okay. And what is the advantage of having the fixed layout? It is very easy to produce them, and generally it has a predictable visual result. So we can predict what kind of visual result will come. So if you are selecting a screen for which it has designed, you will know how it will be displayed. If it is a larger screen, we will know how we can predict how it will be displayed. If it is a smaller screen, we will exactly know how it will be displayed. So that is the one advantage where we can have exact predictable visual result on based on what kind of screens we have. And the drawbacks: for larger screens, there may be excessive amount of blank space to the left and or to the right of the content. So if the screen is larger than what you have designed, okay, so as a designer, you have chosen certain width, okay, based on certain criteria of the what kind of screens will be used. So if let us say your application is accessed by a larger screen than that particular designed width, rest of the space will look blank. So that is the one disadvantage. It is also optimized for typical desktop monitors. However, as more and more users visits are happening via smaller mobile devices, so it is highly optimized for the desktop monitors. But the issue is, the problem is, lot of mobile devices are being used to access the web applications. So this is the one example of the application. You can see here the CSS rule. This is the ID selector, div hash wrapper. Wrapper is the ID, and here we have specified the width. Width is 960 pixel, and background hyphen color is tan. This is the color that is going to be chosen for the background where this property is this ID is going to be used. And this is the HTML document body, and we have div, and div id property is set to the wrapper. So this particular div is going to use all these properties. So this div will have a width of 960 pixel and background color of tan. Inside this div we have some header information, main content. This is the division for the main, and we have footer information. This is the close of the division. So the content is not given. This is what is the content. On the left hand side we have a navigation element. In middle we have some main content, some header is there, image is there, some kind of a text paragraph is there. On the right hand side you can see it could be an aside element. And if you see here, the width of this is the complete div. Inside the div we have all these things. The width is fixed to 960 pixel. This particular screen is larger than 960 pixel. The extra area, whichever is more than 960 pixel, it will be shown as blank. Okay, that is with the fixed layout. Now if we add two more properties, that is margin hyphen left as auto, margin hyphen right as auto. So what is margin hyphen left? The margin from the left, this is the parent. From here, this is the margin left, and this is the margin right. So if you set it as automatic, automatically it will adjust itself so that the content, the whatever the divs content will be centered with the equally divided empty spaces. So on the both sides you will have the empty spaces. So this look might be little better than this, but still we are going to see those empty spaces whenever the screen is larger. So problem with the fixed layout. The problem with the fixed layout is that they don't adapt uh, to the viewports. So this is the application you are seeing, and you can see there is a little empty screen because this viewport is larger than the your web application width, and the minute you tilt that device, it is going to have a smaller viewport, and you can see some of the content has been chopped off. So here you can see, because we know it is a fixed width, it will show the content which will fit in your viewport, and whatever the content that is not fit in that viewport, that will be truncated, means you won't be able to see that particular content. You can see this on the right hand side, it has been chopped here. So it has been chopped, you won't be able to see whatever is content on the other side. That is the problem with the fixed layouts. To solve the problem of a fixed layout, we have the liquid layout. Okay, so as the name suggests, liquid layout. So whenever you have a liquid, suppose you pour it in a smaller container, okay, it will take that much space. When you pour the same amount of liquid into a bigger container, according to the container size, it will spread across, right? So that is a basically understanding behind the liquid layout. Liquid layout will try to adjust with the screen, whatever the screen, larger screen or a smaller screen, accordingly it will change. In a liquid layout, also called as a fluid layout, widths are not specified using pixels. So pixels, when you specify the width using pixels, it will become a fixed layout. So because pixels are the absolute values, so your width will become that much pixels. So it is fixed irrespective of what kind of a screen you are displaying your web application into. So instead of using width in terms of the pixel, they use the percentage values. So the width will be in percentage of its parent value. Whatever is the parent size, so at the end, the highest parent is your viewport. Okay, so if you make the percentage based on the viewport, accordingly, it will adjust. Advantage with the liquid layout, adapts to different browser sizes. So according to different browser sizes, it will automatically adjust. What are the disadvantages? Liquid layouts can be more difficult to create because some elements such as images have a fixed pixel size. So we talked about many elements which the size, for example, in case of an image, the size is actually dependent on the image, which is external entity, and it is very difficult to resize those images. That is the one disadvantage. The line length, which is an important contributor factor to readability, may be too long or too short. Okay, so this is the disadvantage. Even though we feel when we use the liquid layout, or automatically it will get adjusted to the screen. When it is automatically getting adjusted to the different screen, it doesn't care about the line length. Suppose line length is a very important criteria for having the readability, means how easily we can read the content. That is a very important factor. Our documents, HTML pages, should be highly readable. So the line length, which is an important contributing factor to the readability, may become too long or it may become too short. So that way, that is a one disadvantage with the liquid layout. All right. So this is the example of a liquid layout. You can say this is the window size. Okay. And it's the same. Okay, same, almost same content what we saw in the fixed layout. We have the left navigation, we have one more header on the top, then main content is here, and we have a sidebar. So fluid layouts are based on the browser window. So whatever the fluid layouts we use, they are dependent on the browser window, how big or how small is the browser window. However, elements can go to spread out as a browser extends. So this is the size of the browser, and this is how your application will look like. It's a liquid layout. It's been created with the liquid layout. Liquid layout, you'll be most of the elements wherever it is possible, you'll be using the width as the percentage of the parent. So as the window size increases or decreases, accordingly the inside element width or width will change. Now the window size has been increased. Now you can see all these things size has been increased. So when it is increasing, the spread can be like too much or too less, because here you can see navigation, we really don't need this much space, isn't it? Because the window size is increasing, so the size will also increase. So that is how, like looks wise, it might spread out some of the elements which are not expected. How to solve that particular problem? Suppose in this case, irrespective of what kind of a screen we have, normally the navigation, all the links would be here. This would width is almost fixed, right? Whatever the size we want, all the content would be inside that particular section. That width is almost fixed. We don't want to change it along with the size of a different screen. So in that case, we can use the hybrid layout. Hybrid layout, what it will do, it is the combination of the fixed layout as well as the liquid layout. A hybrid layout combines pixel and percentage measurements. So it will mix both of them. Fixed pixel measurement might make sense for sidebar column containing mainly graphic advertising images that must always be displayed and which always are same width, right? So the sidebar columns, it's a navigation or a sidebar. The almost their width is almost constant. It need not change with a screen. Those we can keep it as a fixed pixel, and percentage would make more sense for the main content. So this the main content what we have here. So this is the main content. So if this one is fixed and this one is fixed, because these are not going to change much with the different screens, we can keep this and this as fixed, and we can let the main content change as per the different screen. The main content width can change. So in that case, we can make percentage would make sense for the main content or navigation area, which perhaps min and max size limits in a pixel set for the navigation area. So here we can set it for the navigation area also. Okay, it depends on what kind of a design approach you want. If you want, you can have a pixel, or in this case what they are doing is they are using that navigation area is also as a percentage. So main content is percentage, and also we can have navigation areas as percentage. There we can have a minimum and maximum size limits. So we can specify what should be the minimum size and what should be the maximum size. Those limits we can set for the navigation areas. Responsive design. So what is a responsive design? Responsive design is the one where the element which are on the web application, they respond to the browser size. According to the browser size, it will change in its appearance, or the way it is appeared in a larger screen would be different. The way it would appear in the smaller screen will be something else. It will provide the same kind of a functionality, only the visual display of that content would be different in different screen. In a responsive design, the page responds to the changes in the browser size that go beyond the width scaling of a liquid layout. One of the problems of liquid layout is that images and horizontal navigation elements tend to take up a fixed size. So we know that the image will take a fixed size, and horizontal navigation elements also, they will take the fixed size. When the browser window shrinks to the size of a mobile browser, liquid layouts can become unusable, because the way it's going to shrink certain elements, but certain elements are unshrinkable. They will remain same. If it comes to the small mobile browser screen, it will become web application will become unusable. In a responsive layout, images will be scaled down and navigation elements will be replaced as the browser shrinks. So what we are going to do in a responsive layout, the images will be scaled down. So larger image will be brought to the a smaller image. We will going to scale it down, and also navigation element will be replaced by just the as the browser sync. We are going to replace those navigation elements. This is the example of a responsive design. So you can see here, this is the larger viewport we have, and the content will be displayed like this. And when the size of the viewport reduces, or the size of the window reduces, you can notice this image, particular image, it has shrunk. Notice how some elements scale to shrink as browser window reduces in size. So if it further reduces, so if it is like a mobile browser, when the browser shrinks below a certain threshold, then layout and navigation elements change as well. In this case, the UL list of hyperlinks change to a select. So you can see the UL, it is unordered list of all the hyperlinks. It is changed into a select. Select is a drop down control element where you will have the multiple values. So it is changed to a select, and the two column design. Now if you see here, predominantly it is a two column. Visibly you can see two column. This two column design has been merged into a single column design. Responsive design, there are four key elements that make responsive design work. First thing is, so how to make a responsive design? There are four important components that can make a particular web application as a responsive layout. First one is the liquid layout. We have to use the liquid layouts. Scaling images to viewport size. So we have to scale the images according to the which viewport size is available. So whether it is a complete laptop screen or a mobile screen. So according to the viewport size, the images has to scale down or scale up. Setting viewports via the meta tag. We will see how we can set the viewports using the meta tag. Customizing the CSS for different viewports using media queries. So this is also one of the aspects. We will be customizing the particular CSS for particular kind of a viewport. For example, I have a large screen. I will be customizing certain CSS for that kind of a screen. Let us say we have medium screen. I will have another set of CSS that will be applied for the medium size screen. Let us say I have a very small screen, then I will have a different CSS settings that will be applied to a smaller viewport. Okay. Responsive design begins with the liquid layout. You are going to say max width is 100%. That is one in which most elements have their widths specified as percentages. Making images scale in size is actually quite straightforward, in that you simply need to specify the following rule. So how to scale down the images? It is very simple. You can set the property of the image. Okay, this is a rule for the image. You will set max hyphen width as 100%. So this is the maximum width. When you set this property according to the viewport size, it will the image will scale down or scale up. A key technique in creating a responsive layouts makes use of the ability of current mobile browser to shrink or grow the web page to fit the width of the screen. So you can see here, this is the mobile browser renders web page on its viewport. Okay, so this is the mobile browser which is rendering to its viewport, and mobile browser viewport is set as 960 pixel. Then when scales the viewport to fit within the actual physical screen, then what it will do is it will scale down the viewport. Okay, it will scale down the viewport so that it can fit in this particular physical screen. So 320 pixel mobile browser screen, that is the screen. So first what will happen, mobile browser will render the web page to its viewport as 960 pixel. Then that particular viewport will be scaled down to fit the physical screen. Whatever is the physical screen, it will fit, that is 320 pixel. If the developer has created a responsive site that will scale to fit a smaller screen, she may not want the mobile browser to render it on the full size viewport. The web page can tell the mobile browser the viewport size to use the via viewport meta element. So we can use the meta element. You can see here how to set that. This property would be the meta property will be set in the inside the head section of the HTML document. How to set it? Meta inside the angle bracket, opening angle bracket and closing angle bracket. We are going to set it as name is equal to viewport, content is equal to width, content is equal to width is equal to device width. So whatever the device width, automatically it will take as the viewport size. So you can see here, this property has been set here. Meta name viewport, content width is equal to device width. So mobile browser renders the web page on its viewport, and because of the meta setting makes the viewport the same size as the pixel size of the screen. So because we have set this property, it will make the viewport same size as that of the screen. So it will make it as the 320 pixel mobile browser viewport, and then it displays on the physical screen with no scaling. So here scaling is not done directly. What happened? Excuse me. The mobile browser renders the page according to this size. So where it will fit it into the viewport size. Okay, and this viewport size would be same as the physical screen. So device width is equal to device width. So that is how it will automatically set. The viewport is set to the width of the physical screen, and the mobile browser renders the page into the viewport. Media queries. The other key components of responsive design in CSS, media queries. A media query is a way to apply style rule based on the medium that is displaying the file. You can use these queries to look at the capabilities of the device and then define CSS rule to target that devices. So as I told you, we can have a custom CSS rules according to the medium where it is getting displayed. If it is a smaller screen, we can have a different set of CSS rules. If it is a larger screen or a medium screen, according to the size of the particular screen, we can customize the CSS rules that we can use using the media queries. At media, define this as a media query. So this is defined as a media query. Only use this style if both conditions are true. Okay, what are the both conditions we have? First one is the screen. Device has to be the screen, and this is the condition. Maximum width is colon 480 pixel. So this style will be used if width of the viewport is no wider than 480 pixels. So up to 480 pixel. Okay, up to 480 pixel, and for this screen, device's screen, and up to 480 pixel, these rules will be applied. CSS rules to use if device matches this condition. So if these are the conditions, if the particular device matches this condition, then we are going to apply these CSS rules. We'll see with the another example. Contemporary responsive sites will typically provide CSS rules for phone display first, then tablets, then desktop monitors, and approach is called as a progressive enhancement, in which a design is adapted progressively for advanced devices. So in contemporary design, how the response sites would be: first we are going to specify the CSS rule for the phone display, then it goes to a larger screen, that is tablet, then even larger than tablet, that is a desktop monitor. That is called as a progressive enhancements. So media query, browser features you can examine with the media queries. These are the features, and this is the description. Width, this is the width of the viewport. Height of the viewport. And device dash width, it is nothing but the width of the device. Device hyphen height, it is the height of the device. Orientation, whether a device is a portrait or landscape. And color, the number of bits per color. These are the components of the features of the media queries. Now you can see here, this is the example, styles.css, that is the file that would be included along with your HTML document. So that you can see it here. Okay, this is next one. See, we have one file, styles.css. This would be used inside the HTML document as a external styling. So we know CSS rules can be applied in three different ways. Either it can be inline, it can be embedded, or it can be as an external style sheet. So this is an external style sheet that will be linked to the HTML document. Inside here, we have the media queries. So this is the comment: rules for the phones at media only, screen and max width colon 480 pixel. So if this condition is true, then we are setting the properties here. Okay, all the properties that would be suitable for the max width of 480 pixel. Now next is CSS rule for tablets. Let us say the width is more than that. So you can see the media query at media only screen, and we are specifying the minimum width and the maximum width. So what would be the minimum width? 481. Up to 480 pixel, this rule will be applied, and from 481 pixel to the 768 pixel, means the screens that are having 481 pixel to 768 pixel, those will be applied with these CSS rules. So these CSS rules are more suitable for having a width greater than 481 and lesser than 768. Suppose if we have a larger screen, then CSS rules for the desktop at media only screen, and minimum width is 769. So 481 to 768 is taken care by these rules. If it is beyond 768, that is minimum width is 769. If it is more than, greater than or equal to 769 pixel, these rules will be applied. Okay, instead of having all the rules in a single file, now you can see all these rules are specified in only one file, and this CSS file is linked to the HTML document. Instead of having it in a one file, we can put them in a separate files, and we can add the media queries in the link elements. How to do that? You can see here, link rel is equal to style sheet, href mobile.css. So in case of a mobile.css, I will have whatever the rules you have specified here. Okay, those rules will be applied in the mobile.css. Okay, that's a file. And what is the media query that we are going to specify? Whatever the media query you have specified, instead of that, you can specify it here: screen and max width 480. And next link, the rel is equal to style sheet, href is equal to tablet.css. Whatever the rules you have for the tablets, everything will go in this css file. And media query is media is equal to screen and min width 481 and max width 768. So it is going to check for all the three conditions, whether it's a screen, whether the minimum width is 481 pixel and max width is 768. And next one is link rel style sheet href desktop.css. So all these rules which are meant for the desktop will be included in this style sheet file, that is desktop.css. And media is equal to inside the double quotes screen and minimum width 769 pixel. Then you can see here, if here I'm not sure if it is visible for you. Here it is written, if lt is less than ie9, then link re style sheet media all href style hyphen ie dot css and end if. So this is the if condition. If this is handled if the internet explorer version is 8 or it is using the below 8, then this particular condition will be true. So if it is uh, greater than 9 or greater than 9, then this will not be applied. This is applied only if the internet explorer is 8 or below versions. Next is css frameworks. CSS framework is a pre-created set of CSS classes or other software tools that make it easier to use and work with the CSS. So there are many CSS framework that are available. We will not be studying about those framework in detail. So just it's a exposure how many different frameworks are available there, and these softwares they easily work with the CSS. There are two main types of CSS framework. We have grid system and CSS preprocessors. Grid system, uh, here what will the framework will take up the most of the things related to the displaying the web application. In case of a grid systems, make it easier to create multi-column layouts. Some of the most popular are, so grid system, it will help us to create a multi-column layouts. We already saw with a few example how we can create the multiple columns using the float or some other techniques. Okay, using the margin left margin right margin, those properties we are able to create multi-column. These grid systems, these will help us creating the multi-column layouts. So one of the most popular is Bootstrap. You must have already heard about the Bootstrap. You can take a look into Bootstrap. Using Bootstrap, we can have a very nice layouts for the web applications. Then this is the location where you can see the Bootstrap code. Then we have Blueprint. This is the link for their website where you can find more details. And we have 960. Print designers typically use grids as a way to achieve visual uniformity in the design. So why we use the grids? So that we can have a visual uniformity across multiple viewports. In print design, the very first thing a designer may do to construct it, for the instance, a 5 or 7 or 12 column grid. So we can use 5 or 7 or 12 column grid. The rest of the document, whether it is a text or graphics, will be aligned and sized according to the grid. So whichever the grid you choose for your application, everything else, the text or the graphics, it will be aligned according to that particular grid size. So this is the example. This one, most page design begins with a a grid. In this case, 7-column grid is being used to lay out the page elements in Adobe InDesign. So this is 7-column. It is using 7-column. So you can see the whole the web application. It is divided into 7 columns, and this is without the grid lines visible. The elements on the page do not look random, but planned and harmonious. So here only thing is, like, this grid lines are removed here. Here you can see the content. It is not randomly distributed on the page. It feels like it is very well planned, and it is placed well, and each content seems to be very nicely displayed, and each of the components or the elements, they complement each other. This is the code using 960 grid. We have the style sheets. So some of the, I told you, these are the frameworks that provide a lot of rules, CSS rules. We have reset.css, text.css, 960.css. You have to include those files. Then we have container underscore 12. If you want to get more details about these classes, we have here container underscore 12, grid underscore 2, grid underscore 7. Okay, so this is the second grid. This is the complete container of 12, and the first div I have a grid of 2, and second div grid of 7. This is the main content, and this is the left column. This is main content, and this is the right column where we have grid underscore 3, and another class, we have another div class is equal to clear. If you want to get more details into what this particular class is, we have to refer to these CSS files, where we will have the these class selectors, and inside the class selector we will have the different rules. Excuse me. This is using the bootstrap. Okay, how to create that column layers using bootstrap. First is you have to include the bootstrap file, CSS file. So this is open source. You can get it, you can log into the official website, and from there you can get this CSS file. Inside this CSS file, we have all the definition for these class selectors. Container, so this is the main div container. Then we have a div class row. Then inside that, so this begins here and it ends here. Inside that I have the class call hyphen md hyphen 2, 2 columns. That is a left column. Then in the middle, main content, call hyphen md hyphen 7. That class is used for the main content, and class is equal to call hyphen md hyphen 3. That is for the right column. These rules, whatever the rules specified by these classes, will be applied to the right column, main content, and the left column respectively. Excuse me. So this is an example of a pure bootstrap layout. You can see how information is displayed as a column. So this is underneath, it is a grid structure. This is also, you can see there is a underneath, it is a grid structure, and it is nicely displayed out. All the content is nicely displayed out. Next, CSS preprocessors. CSS preprocessors are tools that allow the developer to write CSS that makes advantage of programming ideas such as variable inheritance, calculations, and functions. Most sites make use of some type of a color scheme, perhaps 4 or 5 colors. Many items will have the same color. So these are some preprocessors are there. Using the preprocessor, it will create a very nice CSS file. For here example, this is a SAS, okay, SASS source file, okay, and the extension of that is dot scss. Okay, and this can be processed. This particular file can be processed using a SAS preprocessor. Okay, and once it processes this file, it will create the .css file. So here in this example, you can see this example uses SAS, that is syntactically awesome style sheet. Here three variables are defined. You can see uh, these are the three variables: color scheme A, color scheme B, and padding common. So these are the variables. You should understand SAS. Okay, SAS, how to create a SAS for file, how we can use that styling. You can reference the variables elsewhere. SAS also supports math operators on its variables. So you can see here footer, background color, dollar color schema. You can see the color schema variable has been set, and it has been given with some hexadecimal value, and that value is set here. Then padding colon, padding common. What is the padding common variable? It is set to 0.25 em, 0.25 em multiplied by 2. So we can do some, we can use the math operators. So it will become 0.5 em. And again, mixin is like a function and can take parameters. You can use mixins to encapsulate common styling. So it can take the parameter. So at mixin rectangle, we have color back, comma, color border, border solid 1pt, and color border. So whatever you are setting, these values will be passed here, and color back is set here. Background color is set as color back, and field set at include rectangle. So we are calling for the field set, we are calling this particular rectangle, that is the mixin, and we are passing the two colors here. So whatever the value you have set here, those two values are sent as a parameter. Then dot box at include rectangle, so same mixin is called, and padding, additionally padding is set as padding common, that is the padding common value is set. So the processor is some type of a tool that the developer would run. Okay, on top of this, yeah, this would be the input file for the SAS processor. Then the SAS processor will provide this output. The output from the processor is a normal CSS file that would be then you referenced by the HTML source file. So once you process this one, you will get the output like that. So you can see for footer, for the footer padding is 0.5 em, background color is this one. So where is that footer? Footer, this color scheme is set as this one. Okay, it is 796 D60. So background color is 796 D60, and padding. What is the padding? Padding is dollar padding common, that is 0.25 em into 2, that is 0.5 em. It is set as 0.5. So similarly, all these values will be calculated for the field set and for the dot box, that is the box class. And this particular generated CSS file, this CSS file can be referenced in the HTML document, and when this is referenced in the HTML document, all this styling will be used for the painting the HTML elements.